My brother and sister-in-law are trying to kick me out of our grandmother's house that I've been living in for 5 years to turn it into an Airbnb. Throwaway because my brother knows my main account and I don't want him to see this. Also, sorry for any formatting issues. I'm typing this on my phone and I'm still pretty upset. So I, female, 30, moved into my grandparents' house about 5 years ago when my grandfather passed away. My grandmother was getting older and needed help with daily stuff. And since I'm single and work as an elementary school teacher at a school that's literally just 10 minutes away, it made sense for me to be the one to move in with her. Anyway, my grandmother passed away 6 months ago. It was really hard on all of us, but especially me since I'd been living with her and taking care of her. According to her will, she left the house to me, my older brother Roger, 36, and our cousin Judy, female, 32, in equal shares. But the will specifically stated that I could continue living in the property for up to 10 years before any decisions about selling would need to be made. I know this probably sounds like I'm financially dependent or whatever, but I'm not. I mean, I pay all the property taxes and maintenance costs myself. I've even renovated the basement into a small apartment that I sometimes rent out to help cover expenses. But honestly, there's no way I could afford my own place in this housing market right now, especially not on a teacher's salary. I've kept everything in the house pretty much the same since Grandma died. I still haven't even moved into the master bedroom. I just can't bring myself to do it yet. I still sleep in what used to be my childhood bedroom when we would visit. So last month, Roger and his wife Melanie, female, 35, showed up unexpectedly on a Sunday afternoon. I was actually really touched because Roger barely visited Grandma during her final years. He was always too busy with his business ventures or whatever. They brought wine and Roger made pasta salad. I invited them in and we were sitting in the living room when Melanie started complimenting the house, but then immediately suggested different paint colors. I should have known something was up right then. Roger mentioned they'd been thinking about the house's potential. When I asked what he meant, Melanie pulled out her iPad and showed me Airbnb listings in the area. Roger explained they want to convert the house into a luxury Airbnb. Melanie kept talking over me when I tried to respond about their vision for the place. Then Roger told me I needed to move out within 30 days. I reminded them about the will and how it specifically says I can stay here for up to 10 years. Roger dismissed it, saying it was just Grandma being overprotective and that the market is hot right now. Then Melanie called me selfish for hoarding a valuable family asset. I lived with Grandma and took care of her for years while they barely visited. This isn't the first time Roger has pulled something like this. He's always been entrepreneurial, which sometimes means at other people's expense. When I was 9, he sold my bicycle to a neighbor because I wasn't using it enough. I literally cried for weeks. My parents made him give me some of the money, but they also kind of praised his business sense. About a week after they ambushed me, Roger organized this family dinner at our parents' house. He and Melanie presented a formal business plan, showing how we could all make thousands per month from Airbnb earnings. My parents seemed really impressed with the idea. They've always favored Roger's business stuff over my career in education. Cousin Judy was there too, but she didn't say much during the whole presentation. Just kind of sat there quietly. I told them I wasn't interested. I have a legal right to stay here. I'm emotionally attached to this house, and I don't want to commercialize a family home that's filled with memories. Grandma would have hated that idea. Roger got really angry after that, saying I was preventing the family from building wealth and that I was being selfish. The dinner ended with everyone upset. And then yesterday, oh my freaking God, I can't even. Yesterday, I discovered that Roger and Melanie had already created an Airbnb listing for the house. They used photographs of a similar house for the interior shots, and they're already accepting bookings for next month. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. They didn't even tell me they were doing this. Roger called me last night and said he would take care of the situation if I continued to be difficult. I'm honestly scared about what he might do next. I don't want to move out. I have every right to be here according to the will, and this is my home. But I don't know what to do about Roger and Melanie trying to force me out. Now for the first update. First off, I've been so stressed that it's actually affecting my teaching. I literally called one of my students Roger during math class the other day. That's my brother's name for those who didn't read my first post. And my principal pulled me aside yesterday to ask if everything was okay because I seem distracted. Like, yeah, no kidding, I'm distracted. So basically, Roger and Melanie have been showing up at the house constantly over the past couple weeks. They've been bringing tape measures and clipboards and taking notes about everything. One time they even brought these people they introduced as investors, and another time it was some lady who was an interior design consultant. I realized they were actively planning to take over my house. I know I should have been more firm about boundaries, like many of you suggested, but honestly, it's hard when it's family. I've been perfectly clear that I'm not moving out and that I have the legal right to stay here, but then I also let them in several times just to avoid a huge fight. I know that was stupid now. There was this one super uncomfortable visit where Melanie just walked into my bedroom without asking and started taking pictures of everything. When I asked what she was doing, she said she was just getting ideas and rolled her eyes when I asked her to stop. She was looking at my furniture and decor like it was all garbage. This is the bedroom I've had since I was a kid visiting Grandma. It's my space. The whole situation with my parents has been really frustrating too. They keep saying they want to keep the peace and have suggested that I move into this small apartment complex near them that they would help pay for temporarily. They say they just want what's best for everyone, but how is forcing me out of my home what's best for me? I think they're trying to be supportive, but they've always favored Roger's business ideas over anything I do. But things got really bad last Wednesday. I came home early from school because one of my students threw up, and we had to send the class home, stomach bug going around. I walk in and find Melanie in my kitchen measuring the counter space. I didn't even know she was coming over. I asked her what she was doing there and how she got in. She barely looked up from her measuring tape and told me Roger has a key. When I said I never gave Roger a key, she just shrugged and said he's co-owner. So of course he should have access. She just kept measuring like it was no big deal. I told her they needed to leave immediately and return the key. She got all huffy and called Roger, complaining that I was being dramatic. Roger got on the phone and told me I was making this harder than it needed to be. When I said I'd call the police if they ever entered without my permission again, Melanie actually laughed and said I wouldn't call the cops on family. Roger told me not to create more problems than I already have. It felt like a threat, honestly. After they finally left, I immediately called a locksmith to change all the locks. I also ordered a security camera system online. The whole thing cost me almost $800, which was basically all the money I had been saving for a summer trip. I'm not great with technology, so I had to watch like a million YouTube videos trying to figure out how to install the cameras. I eventually gave up and asked Pete, the IT guy from my school, if he could help. He came over on Saturday and got everything set up properly. I've been so anxious about this whole situation that I've barely been sleeping. I've actually started taking Grandma's jewelry to work with me because I'm worried they'll come in and take it when I'm gone. Some of those pieces are really special to me, especially her pearl necklace that she wore on her wedding day. Oh, and Judy, my cousin, who also inherited part of the house, finally called me. She said she supports me staying in the house like Grandma wanted, but she doesn't want to get involved in family drama. Thanks for nothing, Judy. So yesterday, oh my freaking God, yesterday was insane. I was teaching my class when my phone kept buzzing with security alerts. I couldn't check until my lunch break, but when I did, I almost had a heart attack. The security cameras showed Roger and Melanie breaking into my house through the back door. The security footage showed them using a crowbar on my new back door lock, bringing in empty boxes, taking down my photos from the walls, and carrying my clothes out to the garage. They brought in new decorative pillows and staging furniture while someone took photos. I heard Roger talking about being ready for guests next week. And the worst part, Melanie found my jewelry box and I saw her pocket some of my things. I was completely panicking watching this happen on my phone while sitting in the school cafeteria. I immediately called the police and told them there was a break-in happening at my house. Then I told my teaching assistant I had a family emergency and left work early. When I got to the house, the police were already there talking to Roger and Melanie. Roger was trying to convince them that as co-owner, he had every right to enter the property. Melanie was crying, saying I was ruining their business. I showed the police the will and property documents that I had organized in a folder. The craziest part was when Roger was arguing with the police, he accidentally let slip that they had already accepted over $15,000 in Airbnb deposits for bookings starting next week. He said they'd be in serious financial trouble if they couldn't deliver. The police ended up handcuffing both of them and arresting them for breaking and entering. As they were being put in the police car, Melanie was screaming that I was destroying the family, and Roger was just staring at me with this look of betrayal. My parents called me last night and said I was heartless for involving the police in a family matter. And then Roger called me from the police station, crying and saying he didn't mean for things to go this far and that they're just in a really tight spot financially. Now, I don't know what to do. The police are asking if I want to press charges. Part of me feels like they absolutely deserve it after breaking into my house and trying to steal my things. But another part of me feels guilty because he's still my brother and I don't want to ruin his life. Now for the second update. So, it's been about a month since everything went down with Roger and Melanie breaking into the house. Still can't believe that actually happened, and I finally have some mental energy to update you guys on everything that's happened since then. I've been gardening a lot lately. It's weird, but it's been like the only thing keeping me sane through all this legal stuff. I found an old wind chime while weeding and hung it on the porch. Anyway, after Roger and Melanie got arrested, still feels crazy typing that, I had to decide whether to press charges. My parents started calling and texting nonstop saying family doesn't do this to family and that I needed to be the bigger person and drop everything. Roger called me from the police station crying that this would ruin his record and his life and that he was just desperate and made a mistake. I was honestly ready to cave, because that's what I always do, let's be real. But then I remembered how they literally broke into my house with a crowbar and were moving my stuff out, and Melanie took my jewelry. So I decided to press charges. I just couldn't let it go this time. My parents didn't speak to me for like a week after that. I thought maybe they were actually thinking about everything and processing it. Ha, what a joke. They were just silently disappointed in me, not Roger. Roger and Melanie hired this fancy attorney who kept saying this was just a family dispute over shared property and tried to get the charges dismissed. The whole thing has been so stressful. I had to take personal days from school for each court appearance, which my principal was actually really understanding about, thankfully. One of my students, Tyler, made me this good luck card with a drawing of a judge on it that looked exactly like SpongeBob SquarePants, and it made me laugh for the first time in weeks. I've been trying to stay really calm and professional through this whole thing, even though inside I'm a complete mess. But honestly, I've cried in my car after every single court thing, like full-on ugly crying in the parking garage. I'm not handling this as well as I pretend to be. The biggest thing that happened was during the preliminary hearing when it came out that Roger had secretly taken out a $120,000 loan against his portion of the house without telling anyone. The attorney was explaining Roger's financial situation as context for why they were so desperate to turn the house into an Airbnb, and it just came out. I was shocked. After that, there was a huge argument in the courthouse hallway. My dad got mad at Roger about the loan. Roger just shrugged it off, saying it was just business and a temporary cash flow issue. Melanie mentioned their interior design business was about to take off, and they just needed startup money. My parents demanded to know where all the money went, and Roger was really vague about investments and opportunities. Then Melanie accidentally revealed they've lost money on 3 house flips in a row. My dad then said he'd already loaned Roger $50,000 that they never got back. I had no idea about this. Melanie started crying, saying they were over $200,000 in debt, and Roger blamed everything on the housing market and bad contractors. My cousin Judy showed up as a potential witness, and Roger tried to get her on his side about her share in the house. But Judy said she supported me keeping the house like Grandma wanted. After that day, everything changed with my family. My parents finally saw what was actually happening. They started coming over to help me clean up the mess Roger and Melanie had made when they broke in. While cleaning, I found a box of Grandma's old journals in the attic. She knew Roger would try something like this. She had entries going back years about how worried she was about Roger's financial schemes and risky business ventures. She had specifically structured her will to protect the house from him. But the problems weren't over. Roger and Melanie started a social media campaign, painting themselves as victims of their unreasonable sister, me, who was preventing them from achieving financial stability and holding the family hostage. But it totally backfired because all these people they'd worked with started commenting about unpaid debts and unfinished projects. It was crazy. And then I discovered they were still accepting Airbnb bookings for my house, despite the pending charges. I started getting angry messages from people who had placed deposits for stays that weren't going to happen. One family had booked their entire vacation around staying here. I felt terrible for them even though it wasn't my fault. This whole situation has been so stressful. I haven't been sleeping and I've lost like 8 pounds, which is not the weight loss plan I would recommend to anyone. My hair is literally falling out from stress. The final court hearing was yesterday and it was intense. The judge reviewed all the evidence, including the security footage and the will documents. Roger's attorney kept arguing that co-ownership meant he had access rights, but the prosecutor had all this evidence about how they had planned the break-in. Then Melanie asked if she could address the court directly. The judge warned her about self-incrimination, but let her speak. She started with an apology to me that seemed genuine for a minute, but then blamed me for their financial problems, saying if I had just been reasonable, none of this would have happened. Roger started yelling about family loyalty until the judge threatened to hold him in contempt. My parents were sitting right behind me the whole time, and I could feel their disappointment in Roger. Finally, the judge ruled that the will's provisions were legally binding and that I have exclusive right of occupancy, which was huge. Roger and Melanie were offered a plea deal with probation and restitution instead of jail time. Melanie immediately accepted, but Roger initially refused until his lawyer convinced him. I felt vindicated, but also just sad. Like, this is my brother. We used to build forts together as kids, and now we're in a courtroom with him facing criminal charges. It doesn't feel like winning, it just feels awful. As part of the plea agreement, they have to repay all the Airbnb customers they collected from, do community service, and they can't come to the house without my permission during their probation, which is 2 years. Family gatherings are going to be so awkward now. My mom already mentioned that holidays will probably need to be celebrated separately for a while. That makes me sad, but I also feel like maybe it's necessary right now. The one bright spot is that Judy offered to buy Roger's portion of the house when I'm eventually ready to sell, which won't be for years according to the will. She said she wants to make sure it stays in the family with people who respect its history. That made me cry in a good way. I have so many complicated feelings about everything. I'm glad justice was served, but I'm mourning what's probably permanent damage to my relationship with my brother. I don't know if we'll ever be close again after this. Oh, and I decided to legitimately rent out the basement apartment to Katie, a new teacher at my school. She needed an affordable place, and the income will help me maintain the house properly, which I think Grandma would have wanted. I don't know if my relationship with Roger can ever be fixed. I don't know how we're going to handle family stuff moving forward, but I do know I made the right decision protecting my home and my grandmother's wishes.